Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Additions to the agenda. I don't have any. Does anybody else have any? Seeing none. I have no remarks. Open public comments, agenda items only, please. Seeing none. Guests, Sheriff Anderson, come on up.
Good evening.
It's different calling you sheriff.
I'm still getting used to it myself. My staff corrects me half the time.
We are here to review your contract, ask you a couple questions, welcome you as our new sheriff, and anything that you may have for us as well. I do believe that we'll have some public comments for you too, possibly. I don't know. So let's get right into it. Chris, we'll start with you and work our way around the table on the contract, and because I know you guys all have a few questions here and there, I believe.
Sure. I mean, the biggest was just that with Keith stepping out, and at the time of the signing, we weren't sure who was going to be taking over, whether that was going to cause any changes to the contract, the way that Vernon was taken care of, coverage hours, things like that.
I'm going to, with some leniency, answer your question, but I want to start off with one of my intentions to do first, which is something that I was working on drafting today to send out to all the towns. I'm meeting with the Vernon Selectboard before the meeting goes out, or I'm sorry, before the letter goes out, but basically it's to say that it's my intent to continue all of our contracts. I've been helping Keith develop these contracts for the last 5 or more years, and the level of service that we provided is a service that we have found works. The letter will also state in far more elegant words, essentially I think that there are places where we can do better. I see a lot of opportunities of things that we can do, not just here in Vernon, but also in Windham County at large. And while it is somewhat preliminary to say what those ideas are, I want to start talking to towns and open that line of dialogue to say, how can we make this work in a way that's affordable to the taxpayer and provides a better level of service? My personal opinion, this has been an issue that the legislature, down to the common person, has ultimately dealt with for many years, saying our system's not effective. I can explain inefficiencies across the board, and people say, well, why is it that way? Because it's always been that way. So, I think we can do better.
My favorite phrase.
I'm somewhat optimistic, and we'll see where the rubber meets the road, and hopefully I can be having those discussions before budget time. But again, it's just a little premature for publicly stating what those ideas are, and ultimately my ideas might not be compatible with towns, what they're capable of doing and what they need. So I want to be able to hear what's needed, both from towns that we contract with as well as towns that we are not currently contracting with, and see if there's services we can tailor and provide to do a better job as well.
Jeff, you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. Sandy? G? Okay. All
So,
right.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Ask another. I spoke with you a couple of weeks ago about Facebook nonsense. And it's a common thing that's where, unfortunately, we as a select board get a lot of feedback from the town. That's an easy place for people to air it out. A lot of people either don't feel like the presence is there, or, you know, some people from Silver Lane may not see you guys that often, or the deputy is always in the same 3 spots, which does not cover the entire town. This time of year, we have the rec center open. I'll be honest that I don't spend a lot of time on Pond Road anymore, so I don't know if Deputy Whittle is making his way out there. I know during the school time, he's always right there. But the same thing, when it's not him that's on, there's another deputy. I'll be coming down to pick my son up from the school, and they're sitting here in the parking lot instead of up there where our children are. Same with this time of the year with the pool. So I'm just curious if there is a way that we can all work together to make sure that the police coverage that we have, whether you're half of the town that agrees with the limited coverage or you want more, there has to be some way that we can all be on the same page of something that's acceptable. Is everybody gonna be happy? No, and I understand that, but.
So there's a few questions in there. I'll do my best. So in terms of Facebook, we do have some people who have access to the Vernon page, myself included, but as I've stated many times, both privately and publicly, I use Facebook very little these days. It's a sense of peace that I have found. So anybody who reaches out to me on Facebook, sorry if I don't respond for a month. That being said, I do believe that the use of Facebook as a tool is actually a very valid method in accessing the public. It's a method that people have embraced. It's effective. It's also one of the reasons I got away from it, is because mostly what's effective on it is negative commentation. So for me, it was just a better peace of mind to not be into it day in and day out. That being said, I'm not the only person in our agency who has access to it. We do monitor it. What we encourage people to do is call our office when they have a complaint about something. Sometimes I see a post on there and it's 4 days later. Somebody just asked about a VIN request, and I was just popping on for 30 seconds to try and find a contact for a person. It was right at the top of, the article's at the top of the page, and so I said, thank you for people wishing me well in my new position. And as I'm reading through the comments, I see somebody asking about a VIN request. I was like, yeah, we do that. This has been going on for 2 weeks. But needless to say, so call our office if there's an issue. It's the quickest way to get a hold of us. Somebody sends us a message on Facebook, we try to be responsive on there. We have a public information officer whose job it is to monitor that, but he has days off as well, so we don't always see things right when it happens. We've had many people inquire about issues that are going on, of the nature that I would even say they should be calling 911 about. It's a known issue that law enforcement nationwide's dealt with, the use of social media in accessing emergency services. We all try to publicize, do not use this for accessing us in an emergency sense. We monitor it, but we're not always right on it. I unfortunately can't have my dispatcher watching the screen all day because they have 30 other things going on. So it's, we like to, I would like to encourage the board, as people are saying things on Facebook, not to discourage the conversation, but to say, in addition to the conversation, please call them. We talked about an issue that had occurred, and we received a call from a member of, from a resident who reported ultimately to us, I think his quote was, I just want to let you guys know that this happened. And we took it as, okay, good to know. He was expecting a response.
Well, yes, according to his Facebook, but then, and this is where Mark and I had communicated and found out that there was a little exaggeration in places, so.
So it's one of those things, and that's not uncommon. It's actually part of the reason we have body cameras. It's the reason we have recordings at our office, on our phone lines, and our radios. It helps us go back and figure things out. It's not to cast blame. It's rather to say what's a true account of what happened. So that was a fairly easy one to say, well, maybe we could have done better by following up with them and just saying, I know you didn't really need to see anybody, but here we are. Can we do it every time? No. But, I mean, if we don't have anything going on that day, I mean, that's certainly within the realm, and we've done that before. I don't want to say that we'll commit to that every single time. The short version on the Facebook side, please encourage people to contact our office directly. If they're reaching out to you directly, certainly I encourage you to direct them at us. If they have a complaint regarding the actions of one of our deputies, I again ask you to direct them to us. We have a legislatively mandated internal affairs policy where we do investigate complaints against our deputies. It's a process that we undergo. I guess the way I like to say, because I feel every select board within Vermont runs into a similar problem, that they are constantly the bearers of the bad calls and rarely the bearers of the pleasant calls. I sympathize because I get the same thing on my end. The times where I take concern is when we notice the problem in the same place. When we hear complaints, we being the sheriff's office, we certainly look into them, but when we hear the same complaint regarding either a policy, or we hear the same complaint regarding an individual officer, and it's a consistent track record, that's where we start to say, what do we need to change? That's where we start to recognize with multiple data points that we have a problem. So I think that's where we can bring our conversations, and I'd like to continue having those conversations with the board. Though I feel that for the most part, we haven't really had too many problems in terms of trying to resolve problems as they come up. And then in terms of patrol areas, times, the town voted to reduce coverage by about 72% of the hours. There's been an increase in activity. I know that four-wheelers have been a problem. I've seen it when I'm coming home in my own personal vehicle. And it's like, well, you're not supposed to be doing that. But it's happening. People know that there's reduced coverage. There was a push for our presence to be during school hours to help deal with any of the concerns of safety in the education community. It's also when we notice that most daytime burglaries occur. So while we might not be in front of everybody's house, in fact, we will not be in front of everybody's house, the knowledge that a police officer is capable of responding and responding quick may be a deterrent for people who want to burglarize. I also understand that there's been complaints about at least suspicious behavior, people going on and around people's homes during the evening and night hours. Continue to reiterate, lock doors, lock windows, make sure to install the brackets above air conditioners to prevent people from knocking those out and climbing in. The great thing Vernon's got going for it, it's got a lot of people who are willing to talk to each other. I mean, the community in Vernon, people pay attention, and they talk, and they say, this is going on, they're paying attention to their neighbors, that's excellent. So I encourage you to continue embracing that. Yes, it's small town drama sometimes, but it's also a really good crime fighting tool. If somebody does do something wrong, they might be the person who's able to give us the information to go arrest them. I was really pleased about, I want to say it was about 6 months ago, we were notified by the state's attorney's office that two of the people who were committing several of the burglaries in the Tyler Hill, I think Franklin Road and Pond Road, they got a conviction. The first one pled out, and the second one they got a conviction on. So those are cases that we closed out. It took about 2 years, but still, hearing those things are comforting. Those are all daytime burglaries. So having the police presence in the daytime, we felt made a lot of sense. We have tried to tailor that some so that, yes, there are nights that you'll see somebody at 6 p.m. It might not be tonight, but it adds that perception that I might not be lucky tonight. During times of either sick time or vacation, we will bring personnel in, and they are going to have varied things. Some just don't know that, hey, Vernon wants us standing next to the front door of the school, and that's a communication issue. There's some schools, they just want us running radar in front of their schools. And so if I have a guy coming from another town where radar in front of the school's a thing, they might think that's what we do in front of all the schools. So some of it's communication, conversation. Some of it, I think it's just the nature of what things are. Happy to work with you guys to come up with a plan that works. It's always going to be evolving, moving target. That's okay. I think I got all your questions.
Yep, you did. Thank you.
Anybody have anything else on the board? And because Chris used social media effectively this morning and invited residents to come, I don't normally open up for public comments outside of the beginning and the end of the meeting. But if anybody has questions for Sheriff Anderson while he's here, you're more than welcome to ask those right now. And if you do, please come forward so we can get you on the mic and on the video camera.
If they can just stand, I can swing it.
Okay.
If they can identify themselves, would be helpful.
Yeah. Anybody have anything? Okay. I think we oh, sorry. Come on up, Nora.
Hi. Norma Manning. If something is happening in another town, but is directed towards residents in Hinsdale, who do we call? Not residents in Vernon, or someone from Massachusetts or something, and something is coming over the internet or whatever. So do you call the state police? Do you call the sheriff's department? Who do you try and contact?
I'm smiling and giggling a little, not because I think that that's a poor question, it's because it's one of the inefficiencies of our system that I think we can do better on. If you call any of us, we're gonna get you to the right person, or at least try our best to. I will give a brief explanation of who does what. Obviously, each municipality, their police department's gonna handle their municipality. They might call in the state police for additional resources inside Vermont, if they have them available. The state police for Vernon, they cover our off hours, so the evenings and midnight hours, we'll say, as well as the weekends, unless we shift the schedule just as part of the variations that we do. And then if it's an interstate issue, call either state's jurisdiction and say this is what's going on. What we generally encourage people to do is to tell them to call the place where it's actually happening. So if you see online that somebody, let's say someone's having a mental health crisis and possibly suicidal, call where they are.
Okay.
If you think they're at home, call their home police department and say, this is the problem that I'm seeing online, here's a screenshot, what do you want me to do?
Okay.
They might say, okay, we've got it, but go to your local police, so that they can rely on us to start gathering information and work in an interstate manner. If it's I'll use the incident that involved both Hinsdale Police Department and State Police in the Vernon area several weeks ago now. That was an example of interstate collaboration. When things are occurring, we start getting on the phone with each other. We have many ways to do that, so that we can start sharing and we start integrating organizations quickly to ensure that we have quick information flow. Did I answer your question?
You did, thank you.
So I just have a quick comment to make, because I always have a quick comment to make. What Sheriff Anderson said at the beginning of his last explanation is something that we all need to understand in Vernon, is that when we don't have the Windham County Sheriff's Department, we have coverage through the Vermont State Police. I've seen on Facebook multiple times that, if sheriffs aren't here, we got nothing. And we're just left on our own. That is not the case. You have the option to call the Vermont State Police. They are our coverage when the Windham County Sheriff's Department isn't on. We essentially have 24/7 coverage in Vernon because whenever there's not a sheriff, we can call VSP. That's all I have to say about that.
And I don't want to speak on his behalf, but we have a great relationship with Lieutenant French, who's the commander of the Westminster Barracks. We've met in other towns where there's concerns about overlapping coverage and who's responsible when. If that continues to be a reoccurring thing, I can call Lieutenant French and see if we can set up a joint meeting so that we can address issues in a public forum or otherwise. We've handled that before, but right now I'm not sure that that's necessary.
Yeah, I'm not seeing an overlapping coverage right now, and I've seen more VSP in the last year than I have seen in the 12, 15 years that I've lived in Vernon. So they're doing us right, in my opinion, as well as you guys. So thank you. We're all set? Okay.
Mark,
Oh, sorry, I can't see you behind the post.
Mark Hankey, a question I have for you. Congratulations, Mark. Does Vernon have anything to do, or have they even tried to establish a neighborhood watch system? And is that something that the people of Vernon would be interested in doing? As former police, I think it would be an interesting thing, and maybe very interesting.
So I am aware of a couple ad hoc communities who've established neighborhood watches of varying levels over the last, I'll speak of my knowledge, last about 6 years. How functioning they are right now, I don't know. My experience with neighborhood watches in Windham County, they generally they make connections, and then as the need evaporates, they evaporate until the need comes back again, and then they say, why haven't we been doing this? And so it's kind of a roller coaster. Vernon's Facebook group is a active community. If you're a Facebook user, I'd encourage you to look into it. I think it's Vernon, Vermont. I believe Tim Johnson, the town clerk, helps administer that. I don't believe
There is also a Vernon Watch group
Yeah,
or something.
watch group.
That's a private group. I have no idea who administers that, but there is a Vernon Watch group.
There's a reason why it's a private group, is because obviously in a watch group, you want to make sure that whoever you're inviting in to look to see what information has been provided is the right person you want to invite in, and you don't necessarily always know that through social media. So I think that particular group has been kept as a private group, so the administrator can pick and choose who they invite to provide the information to.
Are they on Facebook?
Yes.
Okay.
I think this is more of a question to the board than anything else. The constables.
Can you identify yourself for
Sorry,
VCTV?
John Wielden. I understand the constables are a volunteering providers or whatever they are. Is there anything, I know one of the constables who's been trying to do stuff but can't do it because of, doesn't have the powers. Are you guys looking at trying to resolve that issue so that they can do stuff?
It's kind of a loaded question there, John. I mean, they're trying to do stuff, but can't.
Do you have town ordinances for certain things, but they can't issue tickets?
Yes,
Because
we can.
they can issue tickets, but they can't, if they go to court, they're not, what's the word I want to use, recognized.
They also have to have a certain amount of police training as well to be able to do those things, and that would be up to the constable or up to the town to pay for that training for that constable.
I mean, is that something?
So it's not something that we can magically tomorrow as a board say, we're gonna change these policies and now our constables can start writing tickets and, grabbing people and putting them in jail. They have to go through the same training that, well, not the same training, but a version of the training that these folks go through to do that.
But there's town ordinances that the constables can enforce without having that type of power.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, and they do, and they have that ability.
They do.
Yeah, yep.
Are you aware of any other towns that utilize a constable in that manner? Other than, I know some people serve, but.
Yep. So the Vermont legislature, don't quote me on the year, but within the last several years, made some changes to this enabling statutes around constables. It's up to the town to establish whether or not they have law enforcement authority. And I believe that's specific to criminal enforcement authority. I'm not a lawyer, talk to the town attorney or leaves the cities and towns if it's a question. That being said, many towns that I'm familiar with, their constables are generally not law enforcement. The concerns that I've heard, and I don't want to represent this as what it is, other than just anecdotal conversations. The concerns I've heard are the who establishes the policies. Law enforcement's a very liability-ridden business. I could arrest a person today, I think it's completely fine and kosher, and tomorrow we have $1 million lawsuit. So there's a lot of liability involved in law enforcement, who manages those policies, who's oversight authority on it, establishing the various policies and procedures that's required by the legislature, the Criminal Justice Training Council, and just general practice. So it really becomes creating a police chief. And then it's a question of, okay, if we're gonna spend this much money, do we wanna create a police chief? And then do we wanna invest in a police department and the things that go with that? Constables have also served other functions in towns. One of those functions has been animal control. Some towns rely on the constables in animal control. Other towns have used their constables for service of various forms of processes. I don't know if Guilford still has a law enforcement constable. I believe that they have the enabling language to allow for law enforcement, but I don't think they have a practicing person. There's also many training requirements that will have to be covered each year. I believe it's 30 hours for a level 2 officer that needs to be submitted to the training council. I mean, it has become a more involved process. Some towns, they have people who are more, volunteers performing a service. And so a lot of retired police officers will become constables because they can maintain their certification. And they don't need to collect a check. They don't need to go fill a fix. They don't need to go jumping off skyscrapers and get the bad guys. They just want to keep their certification because you never know if you might want to get back into it. So there are several retired police officers or active police officers that are employed by agencies that do serve as constables. And certainly there's constables in the area that I'm sure would be happy to come discuss what they can do, what they do, what they prefer to do, if that were an avenue the board wanted to pursue.
Okay. Anybody else? We got Mark here. All right. I think you're all done for real this time.
Cool.
Thank you.
As always, enjoy the evening.
Thanks, Mark.
Gordy, come on up.
Just thinking about you the other day, I felt like I was cheating on you, Gordon.
I don't know where you got that pen. You need to lose it. Good evening. My name is Gordon Christiansen, financial advisor with Edward Jones, 30-year resident of Vernon. My office is in Greenfield, and I work with the town on their finances. Before I get going on the fact that we had an $880,000 bond that matured recently, I would like to just give a brief update on the cemetery committee funds that I also manage with the cemetery committee in collaboration with Cindy. Just a real update. These are conservative portfolios with very strict guidelines on how it's invested. But just for the record, the Perry Cemetery Fund so far this year is up about 4.16%. The South Cemetery is up just about 7%, 6.96% for the year. The North Cemetery is up 8.28% for the year. The Marsh Fund is up 12.06% for the year. And again, these are just very strictly regulated funds with certain criteria, with very strict constraints that I work with Cindy and the Cemetery Committee on, and they're doing well. Today, the primary reason that I'm here is because we did have a $880,000 bond that matured. The interest on that was 3.15%. What I passed out to you was some information on my recommendations for how to reinvest this money, and I did speak with Cindy, and she was fine with reinvesting these assets as the next bond will mature on September 18th for another $100,000, at which time I will speak again with Cindy to see if she needs that cash or wants to reinvest it. But just for those watching perhaps that can't see the paperwork on VCTV, I did want to print out some information on the federal agency bonds that we are investing here in the town. These are AA+ rated bonds, which means that they are the top rated bond quality is AAA, so these are just about as top quality as you can get. And I believe that, as you can see on the first page, it's called the Federal Farm Credit Bank Bonds, all right? And just for those watching, I would just give you the brief description on what this bond does. The federal farm credit banks are part of the farm credit system, a cooperatively owned nationwide system of banks and associations that provide services to farmers, ranchers, and producers or harvesters of aquatic products, rural homeowners, and agricultural and rural cooperatives. So, based on the rural nature of our town, what these bonds basically do is lend money to folks in these industries, agriculture, and so forth. You'll see that the coupon rate or the interest rate on the top left corner are varying between a couple of bonds with the Federal Farm Credit Bank. One is 3.3, the other is matching the present bond that matured at 3.15. I also put in some paperwork from the Tennessee Valley Authority Bond Network, and that their bonds are paying out now at 3.5%. And just to briefly review that, the Tennessee Valley Authority is a cooperative agency and instrumentality of the U.S. government. As the nation's largest public power system, TVA generates and transmits a reliable supply of power for millions of consumers in the area served by TVA and the distributors of TVA power. TVA's objective is to deliver value by supplying low-cost, reliable power, supporting a thriving river system and stimulating economic growth. Because of the $880,000 in this bond, I felt it, and it's up to the board, to diversify this large sum of money. Normally I come before you with bonds of about $100,000. And I felt it would be wise to break that $880,000 into 3 or 4 different bonds. And the other point that I want to bring out is that by the time I hit the office tomorrow and I see the availability of the bonds, so bonds will sell out, okay? Today, as I left the office, there might be $3 million worth of the bond that I have on the paper here. But throughout the course of the evening and the early morning tomorrow, many of those bonds will sell throughout the United States. So therefore, I can't commit to the full $880,000 on any one bond. If I can do it, I will, to keep it somewhat uniform. But again, as I said, it would be best, as you all know, to diversify into a variety of bonds. There will all be, as you can see, AA+ rated bonds. And now, I will take any questions or concerns.
I'm good.
You really think 3 individual bonds is diversifying enough for $800,000?
Oh, I'm not saying just 3, so I actually have a 4th one here. So, you know, Jeff, that's a great question. Again, it depends on availability. What I'm looking for are bonds tomorrow that'll pay and match the 3.15 that matured. And if I go 4 bonds or 5 bonds and break it up into 4 bonds of $200,000 and change, or I can find 8 bonds at $100,000. I can go any which way.
I
Okay.
mean, I don't know, my preference would be a little shorter term than
Yeah.
23 years.
Well, just remember, you can sell a bond anytime you want. Okay. So we're not locked and loaded. However, the problem is the shorter the bond right now, the lower the yield.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so if we can find bonds that are paying 3.15, 3.23, 3.5%, they are, there is a shortage, if you will, on some of the bond inventory, and therefore some of the bonds are selling at a premium versus below par. All right. But to your point, if it's the board's request, I will try to diversify it as much as I can, 5, 6, 7 bonds. Okay.
I think at a minimum it should be.
Okay.
That much money.
Yeah, and that's why I was surprised when this thing rolled in. This was before my time that the $880,000 went into the bond. It's just matured under my watch.
Yeah.
But absolutely, let's break that out.
I mean, really, my preference would be to put it in an index bond fund with
Okay.
a number of bonds.
Well, that's what, okay, so that's a bond fund, but then again, we're gonna go way back to the limitations that are written up by town rules,
Right.
charter, whatever, so
Yeah, yeah.
we're restricted on
That's
that.
a discussion for
I hear
another
you.
time.
You betcha. Okay.
just if one of these bonds is 2042, I don't imagine we're gonna be here to discuss it, that one.
I won't be working for Edward Jones anymore, I'll tell you that.
I mean, I'd like to be here then.
I hope you
Not
are.
in this seat,
Okay.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, I would just encourage as many bonds as feasible,
Okay.
shorter term, but that's just my opinion.
Sandy? No questions?
No question.
Gene?
Just depend on you to get the best rate, I guess.
You got it,
And dividing it up sounds
will do.
important.
Mhm.
So we want to look at a minimum of 5, is that?
But, I mean, could you do 800,000,
I sure can.
stagger the maturity dates?
I will look at the maturity dates to stagger them the best of my ability, okay? Because I'm looking at 5 to 15-year maturity bonds right now, and I'll take that into consideration, and we'll go 8 bonds at $100,000 each. Cindy, quick question. The bond was $880,000, and the interest payment came in for another $8,000 on that bond. Is it all right to invest the $8,000 that came in with the matured bond? All right, so we're looking at about $890,000. So I'll break that out, even closer to 9 bonds, 8 at 100 and 1 at 90,000.
Okay.
Sound good?
Everybody okay? Okay.
Very good. You bet.
All right. Moving on. Cindy, come on up and let's set the tax rate. Do we have the air conditioning on?
I don't know what's
City
coming in
attorney.
here.
Okay.
So we've got the figures in for setting the 2019-2020 tax rate. The tax rate will be higher. And for municipal tax rate, it's 0.5455. Last year, the municipal tax rate was 0.4357, so it's up 0.1098. The local agreement is 0.0028. And then, of course, the education tax is set by the state. The homestead rate is 1.4132. The non-residential tax rate is 1.4817, which is up about 0.08. So the total homestead tax rate would be 1.9615. The total non-residential would be 2.03. This would be approximately $192.50 more per $100,000 of assessed value.
That sucks. Okay. Chris, questions? Okay. Entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we set the 2019 to 2020 tax rate as follows. Municipal tax rate 0.5455, local agreement 0.0028, homestead tax rate 1.4132, non-residential tax rate 1.4817, for a total homestead tax rate of 1.9615, and a total non-residential tax rate of 2.0300.
Second.
Moved and seconded to set the tax rates as read. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? We have set our tax rate. God have mercy on our souls. Page you throw, budget to actual update. You should have a packet. Looks like this.
I broke them down by fiscal year. One fiscal year has actually 3 worksheets because there was 3 different prices. And all it is what you requested me to do was the inventory to what our inventory was, and as it was taken out of the North School and put into different whoever needed them. So I don't know if you want to just take a minute to look at them. And
Does this have a starting number? I see.
yes, if you look at the one that says 7/1/14 to 6/30/15,
Mm-hmm.
we began, on this last page, we began with a delivery of 134 large and 112 cases of small. Then the next line down is what bags were taken out of inventory. And then 2 lines down is what is left, or what was left. And we gave away, at the very beginning, we gave away 4 cases of free large. So we ended that fiscal year with 34 cases of large and 68 cases of small. And then when the next year started, I carried it on to the next year. You'll see where I started with 34 and 68, and then we had new inventory come in of large 117, small was 100. The next line down is what was taken out of inventory, and the bottom line is what was left in inventory at the end of that time period. You'll note that that time period is a shorter period because we had a price change. So that's 7/1/2015 to 1/21/2016.
I'm just curious, where we're rolling from 6/30/15 to 7/1/15,
Yeah.
how is the beginning different than the end? Did I miss something? We got those two,
Yeah, that's how we ended.
but then up here,
No, you have to go to this page right here. This is the inventory.
I got you.
Right there.
Okay, thank you.
This is just what inventory in North School. Because that's where the issue came in with the 14 cases. So if you continue following the dates along, you'll see that at the end of each one, I carried that ending balance to the beginning of the next period. So that would take you to the January 22nd of 16 to 5/25 of 16. I do realize there's an error on the date, so it says 1/22/15, it should say 1/22/16. And we ended that with the 87 and the 143, which we carried forward to the final time period of that fiscal year, which was 5/26/16 to 6/30/16. And we ended the fiscal year with 83 large and 141 small. If I'm going too fast, let me know. So we went, that brought us to 7/1/16 to 6/30 of 17. Where we started off with the 83 and the 141. And the number of bags that were taken out was 64 large, 23 small, leaving an inventory at the end of the fiscal year of 19 cases of large and 118 cases of small. So we began the next fiscal year with those figures. We added new inventory of 104 cases of large. We took out of inventory 55 cases of large and 22 cases of small, leaving an inventory of 68 large and 96 small. That brought us to the final year. What I did with this was, we began with the 68 and the 96. We added 100 cases of large. The information you have there is up to January 30th, because that was when Heather and Tim went over and did a count. So we ended with 140 large and 80 small, and the count was 140 and 80. Since then, we've been going over on a monthly basis and counting them. And we've used 19 cases of large so far, we've taken them out of inventory, and 8 cases of small. So our inventory should be 121 large and 72 small. Our count is 107 large and 72 small, a difference of 14 cases of large.
Is that a consistent number to what we thought we were missing before?
Yes.
Okay. I can remember I was thinking 22 for some reason.
No, it was
That was missing
14.
before.
I did pass this information along to Deputy Whittle because he asked me to let him know how this turned out.
And from what I understand, there's an insurance claim that's been made on the 14 cases.
Correct.
And have we got them this information at this point?
I have not shared this with the insurance company yet.
Okay.
I don't know if they're still getting all their information through the deputy and stuff. However, I will be contacting them to let them know that how our inventory turned out.
Chris, do you have any questions? Well, I'm guessing because there's so much information here, we're not gonna have a whole heck of a lot of questions for you, but we might have to have you at the next meeting when we do. When we have, been able to take a look at this, go through it. Jeff, do you have any questions right off the top of your head?
No, not at this time.
In fairness, we have not, kind of waiting for this, and I know that certainly not any fault of yours, but we have not had a solid waste meeting. So perhaps we will schedule one of those around this to go over before we reconvene here and see if we can put something together.
Okay. What is the, I know there's differing opinions on the solid waste committee about this program and whether it should completely go away or maintain it or what the case may be. I know you guys have met once or twice since you've taken over the board. What is the feeling on the pay-as-you-throw program at this point?
I think that it's very torn. We have not had a meeting since appointing Michael to that committee. We are very quickly approaching losing another member there. And that was what our next meeting was supposed to be about, is to come up with ideas or recommendations to bring before this board. I don't see any way, and this is my opinion on that committee as well, that I don't see any way that we can continue with the pay-as-you-throw the way that it is. It seems like it's broken somewhere, and the only fix to that is to continue to go up on the prices.
Sandy, do you have any questions on the spreadsheet or for Chris as the guy for the pay-as-you-throw program?
No.
Okay. Jean?
No, I understand the inventory, but, so your committee is looking at the money numbers in terms of what
Well,
the bags are bringing in, what it's costing us?
That and what the realistic outcome here is, which it seems to be that the only outcome is that we keep going up on bag prices to make sure that this is a self-sustained
Right.
program. And if we go up any higher, then it's just as cheap to get your own curbside than it is to buy the bags. So, and I believe that we're seeing a lot more residents going that way, and I think that some of these numbers are showing that as well.
So, as a history lesson, which I'm not good at remembering much anything, whether this committee was, really came into full swing when pay-as-you-throw became a discussion. And as we've seen, those of us that have been on the board since, that program stays in the red on a regular basis, which is, for one, illegal, and two, not self-sustaining. So I look forward to see what your committee has to say.
I mean, at the end of the day, I believe if you do the math based on 8 bags a month, there was like a $2 difference between buying our bags and having curbside. But curbside gave you the leeway to, hey, I was a little heavy this month and throw an extra 2 bags out there for the same price. So If it was me, I would certainly go towards my own curbside rather than, everybody's already using their own trash bags and stuffing it inside of these ones, so I just don't see the point in that.
Okay.
8 bags is a big number. Most people tell us they get 1 a week. That's all they use.
Yeah, some people are even every other week.
Yeah,
Okay. So let's take some time to digest the ton of information that's here. And if you guys can do the same, you have this in an electronic format, right?
I do, and I'll send it around and try and get a
Please.
meeting scheduled. Realistically, we should probably relook at this in September. We'll get something on the books for August.
Okay. Sounds good. I don't think we have any questions for you right now. We'll probably have more once the solid waste committee gives us a recommendation and to see if your numbers jive with what they think as well. All right? Thank you.
Did you have anything you wanted to discuss about the budget with me? It's under me, so I just didn't want to get up and walk out.
Yep. You are next for that as well. So we got a budget to actual sheet.
I did a new one.
Which looks like this.
This is as up to date as I got the last fiscal year. As up to date as can be, where they still have bills that are coming in.
So this is the same thing that we went over at the last meeting, but with updated numbers.
Correct, these are
Yeah.
the most updated numbers.
Yep. So we had a few questions that I believe all of our questions got answered at the last meeting regarding the budget, if I'm correct. Tell me if I'm not correct, and we'll ask Cindy why she's here. Or if you have any additional questions with the updated numbers, now's the time.
Michelle, didn't you write down a couple of questions that came up during that?
I did, and then at the last meeting I came back and went through the rest of them. But if you have more.
No, I was just, couldn't remember.
And I have
Chris?
those questions.
Yeah. Jeff? Sandy? Gene?
I appreciate this.
Yes. Great, and we'll start getting these, are you gonna do them, we asked for them quarterly, but?
Yes, I will.
Okay, great. So we can kind of keep a better track of what's going on throughout the course of the year. Very good. Thank you very much.
Could I say something on sort of personal note?
Sure, absolutely.
I just wanted to thank everyone for their kind words and thoughts and prayers during the difficult time that Kevin and I have been going through. It's greatly appreciated. It means a lot to us to know that people are thinking of us.
Yeah, and it's good to see Kevin here tonight. You got a field trip tonight.
Yes. Without blood drawing or being stuck or anything.
All right. Approval of regular meeting minutes on July 2nd, please. Yes, sorry, and the health board meeting minutes from the same date. We need to approve as well. You have a copy of those that got to you this morning.
I just had to drop a couple of things. Cameron was spelled wrong on the present. And because we're in the health meeting, right?
Yeah, we can look at them together, or if you're starting on the health one, let's do the health one first.
Okay. In the paragraph there, the sentence, "The owner of the property will be required to contact Mark Snow by June 26th." This meeting was July 2nd, so.
Supposed to be July 26th.
Oh, okay, that's what the.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just knew it didn't make sense.
Anything else on the
No.
health meeting? So I'll entertain a motion to approve as corrected.
So,
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the health board meeting minutes from July 2nd as corrected. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Abstain.
Did you catch that, Michelle? Okay.
I'm gonna abstain for the next one too.
Okay.
Regular meeting minutes, please.
I'm the clerk, not treasurer. When did I put? Open public comments. She apologized for school inability to honor the lawn mowing agreement and their vote to decline payment in lieu of. That's the end of the sentence.
I'm not honoring that.
Is that what it's supposed to mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
I read it and understood it, but I know it's kind of a weird
In lieu
sentence.
of, you're kind of dangling a position there.
You're the librarian, I'm not.
I don't know, it's like, take that off or whatever.
I read it and I was like, yeah,
In lieu
okay.
of, what?
Start using those fancy words and
Yeah,
Josh just
and
assumes
I was like,
it's
yeah. You use those words that are 4 letters long and I'm done.
And Hannah's name has 2 T's on the end.
Who has 2 T's?
Hannah Gant.
The chair's remarks. I have another question. On the
Now's the time.
new business, budget to actual overview. And this was, I think, related to the fire department, but setting up a fund for lost wages and physicals, which I know we did talk about that, in emergency capital expenses. We have that already.
We were talking about setting up a fund for anything that's under $10,000.
Okay.
We have the 10,000 in the budget, so we go through 2 funds that we want for that.
And also fire pond maintenance, we talked about.
Right.
Fund for fire pond maintenance, so we'll use that money.
Anything else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as corrected.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the regular meeting minutes from July 2nd as corrected. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Abstain.
1 abstention. All right, bills and warrants, please.
Alrighty. I move that we, the word's gone. That we, what's that?
Approved.
Yeah, I move that we approve payment of the following warrants. 2T accounts payable, $119,571.47. 26S payroll, $20,192.39. 27S payroll, $10,284.61. And 28S payroll, $11,608.61.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I was gonna really mess you up and say approve in lieu of, but
In lieu of what?
I don't know, just because. Moved and seconded to approve the bills and warrants as read. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? New business, appointment of Deputy Health Officer Jesse Jobin. So at the last meeting, Mark requested that he have another deputy health officer to go to due to everybody has a job and it's really hard to get somebody to come. So adding another person to call would be beneficial to him. Jesse Jobin has stepped up to that capacity to offer his services to Mark as the Deputy Health Officer and to the town. So I will entertain a motion to accept his appointment.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to appoint Jesse Jobin as Deputy Health Officer. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? And thank you, Jesse, for once again stepping up in yet another role for the town. I appreciate it very much. Wouldn't this be Mark?
No, he's the executive director.
Okay. Guess I should know today's date since I'm looking at it. Okay. Old business, we don't have anything back from you yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Public participation on non-agenda items only. Seeing none. Correspondence and town admin report, please.
Okay, we do have the correspondence in the packet, but one thing I did want to talk to the board about is that it's time again for the municipal planning grant applications. And wanted to get your input on if you would like me to work on that, and if so, what you would like to see us get a grant for planning. My instinct is that we should probably look at planning for the Vermont Yankee site, but we can use it for any planning in town that you feel is necessary.
Chris, ideas? Other than the Vermont Yankee site, which was brought up. Jeff?
No, I don't have any different ideas.
Okay. Sandy, Jean? So I believe that's exactly what that planning grant needs to be for.
Okay.
If anybody has heard around town, both of the cooling towers are now down and gone.
So, there was an awful big media presence in town that day. Did anybody other than you on this board know that that was coming down that day?
No.
Is there a reason for that?
And I found out the day before and was told 10 o'clock and they actually came down at 2 o'clock. So.
I mean, that, as somebody that grew up in this town, I know that there's people around this table that have been here their whole life.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have known about that. I would have liked to have been there. I think that it is extremely, we've spoken about this before, about making sure that everybody at this table is on the same page. So I was a little upset that we weren't on the same page. I would have liked to have known about that, and I'm sure that there's other people here that would have. I think that our planning commission would have probably liked to have known about that. And I feel like the ball was dropped on that, and I would like to think that we could maybe make sure that that's not happening going forward.
So what I would suggest you do, because I had a 24-hour notice to it, is that I get you in contact with North Star so you can do all your security credentials, so when things like this come up, that you can actually go. Because even if I were to tell you or any of the planning commission, unless your security credentials were done, you weren't attending anyway. So we can do that and be ahead of the game, and
I think that certainly should have been done with everything that's going on across the street and everybody at this table. I think that we all should be on that same page. We should all have that clearance, and we should all be aware of what's going on.
And that is up to you to do that. I cannot submit your social security number and all that kind of thing
And
to
that's perfectly
those
fine,
folks,
but
so.
some type of information towards that
Okay.
would be beneficial.
So the media that was involved, they've already had their security clearance, they've already been through this process?
I'm not a North Star employee, but I would assume so.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah,
If they're gonna restrict other people from,
yeah,
I would hope the media went through the same process.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
So. But yes, if you are wanting to attend any of that stuff, we just have to, well, you just have to get your security clearance done.
And that's fine. I mean, either way,
We'll get it done.
it would have, you know, you had 24 hours heads up that an email to all of us, hey, just found out this is happening.
Yep.
I mean, I would really like us all to know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And please don't wait to a meeting to ask for it. You could ask me that day.
Well, I asked you that day, how come the media was in town, and you told me because of the cooling tower.
Yeah.
So I asked you when I found out about it.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Anything else?
Yes, I gave everybody a copy of the hazard mitigation plan draft. That is done. It is not yet ready for public comment. This is really just for internal comment. And once it goes through internal comment, it will be open for public comments for the edits, and then it goes to the regional commission, then to the state, then to FEMA. It's a long process.
They might want to correct the date because they're having it ahead of time. If you look at the top right, spinning the pages, it says November 27, 2019. It hasn't happened
On
yet.
which, I haven't had a chance
it's-
to review it. Is it last page?
It's like an announcement thing.
That is a copy of
Look at the top of the page.
What they planned, yeah, and then also.
27th.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what they did, but see there,
Oh, I see what you're saying, so that should say 2018.
right,
I see what you're
and
saying.
that happens on a couple of pages.
Oh, I see, because it was the
Yeah.
18.
Okay, I see what you're saying. That should be 18. Keep them coming. So if the select board will just funnel all of their comments to me, then I will incorporate them and get them over to Wyndham Regional to get them in the document before it goes out for public comment. And I believe she would, if you can have those to me by April, August, I'm gonna say 2nd, because everything needs to be to her by the 5th.
They're looking for some photographs of
Fluvial erosion
an invasive species.
and invasive species.
Okay,
Those were the two that I couldn't come up with.
I got some.
You've got invasive
Whatever.
species? No?
Multiflora rose.
And lastly, we had a lot of help during the
Infectious.
process for the side agreement and for the state agreement with this whole North Star purchase. And we did get notice from Basie Gossing, who was our consulting attorney, that that file is now closed. So that's all I have.
Upcoming meetings, regular select board meeting on August 6th. There is a joint planning commission select board meeting on August 14th. Mike Renaud has requested to be on the agenda at that meeting as he has expressed interest in purchasing the Vermont Yankee site. So that is one of the reasons why we're all gonna be invited to that,
I will
and
not be here that week.
and the other reason is that North Star will come in and provide the same update that they provide at every IndyCat meeting, but at the town level instead of an IndyCat meeting. So, but it will essentially be the same overview for those of us that don't make it to IndyCat meetings.
I'll be in Wisconsin.
Okay.
I have a library program that night.
I'll be here.
And I will not be here that week.
Yeah.
I'm off to training,
So
so.
it sounds like you and me, buddy.
I'll be here. I'm always here.
We don't even have to warn the meeting now.
Yeah, that's true.
There's only two of us. But in that same vein, I had been working on, because I was informed at one point that there was going to be a town-wide thing organized by North Star to kind of go over everything and celebrate the purchase when it went through. That never happened. It may happen down the road, I don't know. So since so many of us cannot be there, I may work out a public I don't know what to call it, public marketing campaign to get more people at the IndyCat meeting that's coming up in September. Because I know not all of us attend, I know not all the public attends, but any time that there is something going on at Vermont Yankee, that update is given there. And that's the best place for, you know, our residents and everybody else to come and learn about what's going on. So I encourage everybody out in TV land to watch the Vernon Facebook page, and the next IndyCat meeting is scheduled to be in September, so you can get a full update if you are so interested about the Vermont Yankee site and what's going on there. We are adjourned.